Welcome to Her Hacks Podcast, a podcast by women in cybersecurity for everyone.
I'm Lauren.
I'm Connie.
I'm Deanna.
I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Christine.
In today's Her Hack, we're going to talk about the 1995 cult classic, HackHers.
Thank you, Christine. Today's episode is a little bit unique because we are all recording in person today.
Woo!
First time meeting everybody in person.
Woo!
And we all just finished watching the movie HackHers. So for the listeners who maybe haven't seen it before or have seen it and it's been a while, we'll just go ahead and do a quick overview / plot refresher. And I'm just going to throw out a disclaimer at the beginning. This is a very complicated movie, and we try to get this down to a concise point. So if you love this movie and you think we left something out,
Too bad.
We're just going with it.
Get over it. Watch the movie.
Yeah, watch the movie yourself and then give us your own critique. Okay, so we start out in Seattle in 1988, where 11-year-old Dade Murphy, or codename Zero Cool, that's his hacker name, he is getting arrested for crashing 1,507 computer systems. This hack causes a 7-point drop in the New York Stock Exchange, and so he's arrested with some sort of financial crimes, fined $45,000, and then most importantly, he's banned from computers and touch-tone telephones until he's 18 years old. So then, of course, we cut to 7 years later when Dade is now 18, and he and his mom have relocated to New York City, and Dade is going into his senior year of high school. He runs into Kate, who is played by Angelina Jolie, and we can tell that there's some sort of tension between the two and some animosity when Kate plays a prank on Dade that he did not appreciate. So while Dade is in school, he meets the local hacker crew, and he starts to prove himself by doing some low-level hacks, like he's hacking the school database, and he also hacks the school fire sprinkler system to get back at Kate. And so the crew welcomes him in, and the crew is made up of Phantom Freak, serial killer spelled like the food, Joey, who does not have a handle because he's the newest member of the crew, and Lord Nikon, who we don't think goes to school with them, but is still part of the hacking crew. So like I said, Joey is new to the group, and he's really anxious to prove his worth and get his hacker handle. So he does this by hacking a Gibson computer and downloading a partial of a garbage file from this company called Ellingson Mineral Company, and he does this to prove his elite coding skills. While Joey is downloading this file, though, he doesn't know that his intrusion is actually noticed by the company's security professional, codename The Plague, and The Plague alerts the Secret Service to the hack. The Secret Service investigates, and they arrest Joey for allegedly planting a potentially catastrophic virus called Da Vinci. They believe that he has planted this virus into Ellingson's Minerals computer system, that this virus will capsize the company's oil tanker fleet and cause a giant environmental disaster, spilling oil and costing the company millions. We later see in a cutscene the Plague is confessing to Margot, who is his love interest in the movie, that he's actually the one who created and released the Da Vinci virus, but he turned the Secret Service onto Joey, so Joey will take the fall for it. Joey gets released on probation, but he's being tailed by the Secret Service because they think he'll lead them to his co-conspirators. And Joey actually when he gets out, he gives the floppy disk that has this garbage file to Freak. The Secret Service sees it, and then Freak is also arrested because they think he's this co-conspirator. While all of this plot is going on, we also learn that Kate is the hacker who goes by the handle Acid Burn, and she joins in with the hacking crew. There's also kind of this whole subplot of this underlying sexual tension, competition between Kate and Dade that isn't really important to the main storyline, but something that we definitely want to follow up on in the discussion, so we'll circle back to that. But all you need to know is that Kate is now part of the hacking crew. And now Joey and Freak have been arrested, and they tell the group that they've been framed, and they ask the group to find out what's actually on the disk and why they're being framed, who's being framed, basically solve solve this mystery. So the hacking group discovers that the virus is actually a cover-up for a computer worm that is embezzling money from every transaction from Ellingson Mineral Company for the plague. So once the account reaches 25 million, it will execute the Da Vinci virus to distract the company from the embezzlement that the plague is doing. So once Dade, Nikon, Kate, and Serial uncover the plague's plot, they decide that they need to act to save Freak and Joey and to stop this potentially catastrophic disaster. So they do this by rallying all of the hackers in the world to help catch the plague and prove their friend's innocence. And in the end, the hackers stop Da Vinci by crashing the Gibson, and they get the plague arrested. And then, because it's a movie, Dade and Kate start dating, and they live happily ever after, we assume. Supposedly. Allegedly.
It lasts like 2 weeks.
We just see them diving off into a pool together and assume happiness.
And you're missing the makeout under the water.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's forever.
They can make out underwater and not drown. True love.
Yeah. All right. So this is my first time watching Hackers. I actually never heard about this movie until you guys started talking about it. I don't know if I'm uncultured or what, but I did not know this movie existed. Old. Yeah, that might be it. I overall enjoyed it. It's like a bad movie, but it reminds me of Twilight in that like it's bad but also like enjoyable to watch, you know? Like it's not good quality or anything, but it's like fun to watch.
Ouch.
Especially from our perspective, do you know what I mean? Like I feel like being people that know a little bit more about this like field, like it's really entertaining to watch. So those are my main impressions.
Connie?
Yeah, this was also my first time watching Hackers. To say it like Christine.
I thought you said awesome.
I really like that. It's kind of weird seeing tech in 1995. Not something I'm used to. And it's funny how they like portray hacking, which we'll get into later, but I just think it's funny to see how much has changed.
No, I agree. This is also my first time watching it, and I was expecting to see like more code up on a terminal, and like I was expecting to see like sweat and high stakes, and I felt like I just got like a fun kind of romp with like a lot of color, weird like weird shooting style. Like it was not, I was thinking it was going to be much more intense and I would have to focus a lot more than I did, so I enjoyed watching it, but it definitely is like not a good movie.
Wow.
As we can say through like the plot point, like it's very confusing and hard to follow, and I think that, you know, from a film perspective, that makes it not as good.
This movie is super iconic because it has some of the classic lines like hack the planet and like hacking the Gibson. So it's good to know, I guess, just for like kind of a culture or an older culture or a 90s hack culture, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I watched this movie before and I kind of forgot about it, to be honest, and it is a little odd, and I don't even remember really what happened in it because it's so kind of it's so strange because the hacker scenes are really just like these weird graphics, and then they show like the mainframes and like as like some kind of what was the word,
hologram.
Hologram server racks, and it's just like it's very visual, which honestly I think makes it a little more confusing.
Yeah, this was my second attempt at watching this movie because the first time was with and I fell asleep and I think he was offended.
This is like his favorite movie, right?
He said it was so good, and I didn't think it was so good. I think I get really annoyed by like implausible hacking situations, or just the old technology frustrates me because I just feel bad for them. So yeah, I was not a huge fan of this movie. I think what helped get me through it was how we could kind of make fun of it as we're watching it, which is maybe why it's a cult classic, because people like to kind of make fun of it.
Oh, before we get started, a lot of the characters had hacker handles, so I thought it'd be fun if we all got hacker handles. So I found a generator online, and each of us have kind of a unique name. So Deanna, you're just Gray Jaw.
Ooh.
Gray Jaw.
Gray Jaw. Lauren, you're Queen Plague.
Ooh. Oh.
Ew. Does that make me
You take down the plague and you become the new plague.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
That just makes me think of, like,
Rebecca, you're
bubonic.
Rage Ninja.
What?
Rage Ninja?
Rage Ninja.
I fit this.
That's a good one.
I think it fits.
Dude,
That's
it's the
a good
cringiest
one.
one.
No, I like it.
Queen Plague.
Mine is Miss Reaper.
Ooh.
And Christine, you're Miss Hero.
Oh. I like it.
Yeah.
I think they're all kind of fitting, like a little bit, except for Lauren.
Queen plague. Like, what up?
But you are a queen.
You are queen. Yeah. When you look at me, you just think
Queen
bubonic.
COVID-19.
That's true. That's a much more relevant one than the bubonic plague. Well, Christine, you did seem pretty eager to kind of tear into the technology, plot holes, hacking. I would love to hear kind of your take on some of the things that stood out to you.
Oh yeah, so like the first thing, and I talked about this, the sprinkler system hack was completely implausible because sprinkler systems are all manual. Like they're mechanical systems, so like there's no computer.
Are they not like
attached to
automatically
it.
triggered or something? Or?
It's a mechanical trigger, so it's either triggered by like smoke, or the only way to do it, when I was in middle school this happened, somebody threw a key on the ceiling and it hit the sprinkler, and then it made that whole like section. So also to make all of the sprinklers in the entire building go, because they're sectioned off differently. So yeah, I thought that was pretty implausible. Just like a lot of the like hacking stuff in general just seemed really, I think with the holograms and like
and like reading the binaries. Like, just
the reverse engineering part when they were trying to figure out what happened, it was like all hex code.
Yeah.
And then they're like reading through it line by line. I'm like, that's literally not how you reverse engineer.
It's like printed out on paper.
Yeah, he was printing it out, and I was like, I don't think anybody can do it. Like, you have to have a disassembler. Like, you can't. I mean, maybe they're that good in like high school.
Hackers, Christine.
Yeah, I'm just not lead enough. I can only read assembly.
My favorite part of like the technology was that in the like Ellingston Control Center,
Oh God,
the keyboard, did you notice it was just a that had lights? It was all like a giant touchscreen, which I guess exists now. So I don't know why that was like such a... That whole data center was like the biggest suspend your disbelief as to how the world works. Because it's just like glass towers, and as they touch things, it lights up, and it's like, no, you've stolen the file.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't think floppy disks are that robust.
No.
Like, they were pretty rough with that floppy disk. They, like, threw it in the trash and then, like, took it out of the trash.
Stick a
and,
gum
like,
on it.
everything was fine.
They had the little floppy disk, like, utility belt at one point. So we didn't talk about this in the recap, but Kate and Dade have this, like, dueling, like, bet that, like, you know, if I win, you have to go on a date with me, blah, blah, blah. Friends to enemies
to
enemies to lovers trope, but they have to do like this hacking competition between the two of them so that they can finally date and get past their issues. But he literally has like the floppy disk utility belt that he's just whipping floppy disks out of and jamming them into different places, and it's like, this is how you hack. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
They were all different colors, Lauren.
Oh,
that you're right. Sorry, excuse me.
And then,
different colors.
Speaking of Dade, we all thought it was weird that he wasn't touching computers for 7 years.
That's right.
And then suddenly just came out of his probation knowing how to hack immediately again. Like, computers change so much,
especially
in
from
that
like
time span.
88 to 95.
Right.
But like, how do they regulate whether or not he can touch a computer? Like, how would they, like, you know what I mean? Like, you just...
Ooh. Do you think that's why he went to live with his mom? Because his mom was like, I'm not going to enforce the rules. And his dad was too
I just,
straight
when
edge.
I heard the 7-year rule thing in my head, I just thought that was like, not, he wasn't going to listen to it.
Yeah, maybe he didn't listen, because I was like, there's no way that he just wakes up and is like hacking into a TV system. But
I
yeah,
will
those
say,
were-
one of the hacks that seemed the most improbable, but I thought stood out to me the most, was when the plague was trying to threaten Dade and was like, I'm going to change your mom's personal file, which... That setup seemed unrealistic. Like, what is this file that somebody has that says whether they're a criminal or not? Like, I don't think, maybe it does exist and maybe I'm naive, but the whole idea of like, I'm gonna get her arrested and then delete it and get her lost in the prison system, that I thought was the most insidious, like, well thought out, like, devious thing.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh yeah, you're actually really... You're like using social constructs to hack somebody's life. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Which that was the plausible parts of this movie, because they did the social engineering at the beginning. They were like, oh man, like my file got deleted when Dade was like trying to hack into the TV thing. And then the fight between Kate and Dade to see who was like the better hacker was literally just ruining that Secret Service agent Gil's life.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And the winning thing that was really interesting was that first they like gave him a DUI or whatever, and they just kept like increasing the stakes, and then finally they changed his status to deceased.
Oh, that's
which
right.
Yeah.
was really funny because a few years ago at DEF CON, there was actually a presentation on how to kill someone, and there's all these things that you had to do that are completely illegal to basically make somebody show up in like public record as deceased. And what's really interesting is if you do that to somebody, it's actually really hard to become undeceased. And so they
Alive.
yeah.
Unalive.
So you can't be alive again once you're pronounced dead. So I think that what happened was they were talking about how somebody's husband went missing, and after a certain number of years he was presumed dead. So then legally he was dead so that she could get remarried or something. And then they're like, oh wait, he's alive. And then it just kind of like your credit is gone, everything is gone, and it's really hard for you to
I didn't
establish
think
a
about
new
that.
identity. So yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that that's what they did in the movie, because that actually like
Is
is
a thing.
really bad to do to somebody.
Wow. I didn't know it had real implications. I thought it was just like kids being weird kids.
Yeah, but the record thing was weird. Like they were acting like everybody has this like file on them, and
Yeah.
like that's not real. Like I think that different local offices have different files on people, so like it's not like there's this one database of like every human, and they're like, you're dead now. Like
It was really funny because whenever in like a lot of the hacking scenes were like depicted in different like visual ways, but like a lot of them were just them going to like a GUI and just changing things. And when he changed his like school record too, he just went in there and like copied and pasted that stuff.
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, they showed everything in it as a GUI.
Yeah.
Which is like not how it is.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's a very good point.
And then when they were messaging each other, it was like this great GUI client that was like, what was it? Mess with the best, dial out the best.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this, if only
It's
it was like
drag
so
and drop,
easy
you know what
to,
I mean?
like, yeah.
That was one of the like the hardest things to follow in this movie was just a visual representation of hacking, because as somebody who like not a hacker, not even like a white hat hacker, but as somebody who like knows computers and understands how they work, seeing the way that they're getting into a file system as like a video, like a camera running through a building and going into a filing cabinet essentially.
Yes.
Like that was, I was very confused.
A little
like,
too abstract for me.
Yeah, exactly.
A
It's
little
like,
too up there.
are we in a computer or are we running really fast? Like, I can't tell the difference.
Some kind of
So-
virtual reality
Yeah.
situation.
That
yeah.
was, I felt like that was really challenging for me.
Okay. Let's pivot to talk a little bit about women in this movie, because we have some takes about the role of women in hackers and how they're portrayed.
I think the first woman that was introduced was his mom,
Yeah.
Dane's mom, so we could start with her.
So one of the first women, I guess, in a powerful role is Felicity Huffman, who's the prosecuting lawyer, and that's really her only time that she shows up in the movie.
And that's the actress, right? Not the character's name.
Right.
Right,
Yeah. I don't know if the character has a name, but the lawyer who prosecutes Dade is portrayed by Felicity Huffman, who we all know served jail time for Project Varsity Blues because she bribed somebody to take the SAT for her child to get them into college. So that was just a little ironic that she talks about as her character this kid who's a hacker being a menace to society.
Meanwhile.
But, meanwhile, yeah, it's interesting how art does not imitate life.
Like 20 years later.
Yeah.
And then we kind of noticed, not sure if this is on purpose or not, but the mom kind of aged as the movie went on. I guess, I don't know.
Okay, well, so what's interesting about the mom is like the way that we're introduced to her in the first place, I think kind of sets the tone, because we're first introduced to her when the FBI, Secret Service, it's unclear, law enforcement raids her house, and she's like cooking bacon, like cooking her family a meal, and has no idea what's going on. So like they're already kind of setting her up to be like the caretaker and kind of clueless. And then the next time we see her, she is like, it's just a very weird how they chose to portray her, because she looks very young and she's like half dressed and she's sitting on the couch and she's trying to like have a conversation with her son who's blowing her off. But then I don't know if they just had like bad makeup team or something.
Oh my gosh.
Because like, I don't know, but she just starts to look older every scene you see her in. And I don't know if that's like intentionally, oh, look at all the stress her son is adding to her, so
Or
she's like aging. You know, I don't know.
There's like this trope of how they portray women when they're not doing well, and when men portray women when they don't do, like in The Queen's Gambit. Like when the main character is where she's like going through it, she like has the cardigan over the shoulder and her hair is messy. That's like what reminded me of that, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
like, she's trying to bail her son out of jail, so she's more disheveled.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That could be it.
Yeah.
They made her seem very clueless. They also made Margot seem very clueless.
Yes, Margot is the Plague's kind of love interest, right?
Yeah.
I feel like he like mansplained a lot of the hacks kind of thing initially, and also just made her. Well, there was like one scene that was like
She was like, speak English, because people were just using normal terms, and they only did that with her, really.
Yeah.
They did it one time with the agent, because I guess somebody was talking about how the files were corrupted or weren't corrupted or something, and the agent was like, speak clearly to me or something.
But at least then he backed up by saying, I worked for the president for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she was just clueless because she was a woman, apparently.
And she was the one who got hacked because she had one of the 4 main used passwords, which I think was also rude.
Yeah, he because the password was God.
Yeah.
Right. So they said the 4 main passwords was it love, sex, secret, and God as like the admin password kind of thing that system admins will use. And so he kind of like insulted her for using that password. I mean, I guess he should, because that is a bad password,
But yeah, I feel like they threw her under the bus.
yeah, they definitely did.
And then just the way he, like, talked to her and used, like, his physical presence to intimidate her. And anytime she raised a concern, immediately dismissed. And it's actually not until the end of the movie, I don't know if you guys caught this, but when they're reading on the TV about, essentially revealing her crime, she's like the chief marketing officer or something. Like,
whoa, really?
I'm pretty sure she was like a C-suite level, but you would not
bumming it.
You
with
would
that
not. But like you would not get right. Like you don't get that sense of confidence from her at all. That
Or
she's like,
even any character information or anything.
you don't know anything about her except that she like
Has bad taste in men.
and doesn't understand computers and is gonna marry the Plague. Like
Does this movie pass the Bechdel test? I don't think it does. Off
I
the top of my head.
Oh, can you
don't think I saw any female characters speak to each other.
Can you remind us of the Bechdel test?
It's a few rules. The first one is that they like 2 women have to have a conversation with each other.
Oh yeah, that did not happen.
That
never
don't have
happened.
to. That doesn't have to do with men. And then what are the others?
They have to be two named female characters.
Oh yeah.
They have to have a conversation that's at least 2 lines of dialogue, and then
Not about that.
I know, and then it has to not be about a man. And then I've seen some adaptations too where it needs to be like plot relevant. But even at like the lowest standard, we're like,
We didn't
let's
get
just
2
let's
women
even say
talking.
we like take away the names. Yeah, like we don't have 2 women talking to each other
Yeah.
at all.
3 women we can name.
And we don't know
Yeah.
like what the mom's job is, and we I guess don't find out Margot's job until the end. And they moved to New York for the mom's job, but she's never at work. She's never going to work.
None of these women have any sort of like character traits or anything outside of like how they relate to the men.
Development.
Yeah.
The only person who gets screen time is Angelina Jolie's character, and she's highly sexualized.
It's not even like
yes.
development either. It's just like any sort of like characterization outside of like how they relate to men.
Oh, and then we find out about her mom, and her mom is
Oh, she read self-help books for women, but the way they introduce it is like, which
Something.
Right, they introduce it so like Kate's mom, she throws like this party, and she's obviously very wealthy, and they find that her mom is wealthy because she writes these self-help books, but of course they preface it by saying it's for women, as in like that makes it less of value to society.
Oh, and even the tone
Less
in which they
impressive.
say it too is like,
Yeah, he's like, oh, that makes
she
sense.
just writes self-help books.
For men,
And then-
women in relationship problems.
It's very confusing because like you don't learn about Kate's dad. So is Kate's mom like a single mom with like a big house in New York City? Her mom is a successful author. Like there's very interesting things that you could dive into about
she
Kate.
have a house because that is like not even
Yeah,
that
it's like-
exists in New York.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a
She's
house,
in
but it's at least like it's
But go to
at
Stuyvesant.
least a multiple bedroom apartment because okay, so this is one of the things that like really bothered me about the movie was Kate has her own room, and somehow the hacker crew like learns that Kate has an awesome computer in her bedroom, so they go into her bedroom
and
like,
this is at the party.
at the party they go into her bedroom and are like checking out her computer, and then Kate and her boyfriend Curtis, who like is literally Curtis is only there so Kate can be making out with somebody on screen. Like that is literally the only time we see them together.
He had a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was sitting backwards on the motorcycle so they could
Not
make out.
helmet.
No helmet.
Just holding it.
Like, girl,
But, like-
what are you doing?
So they, we've already seen that, but then the hacker crew, the dweeb squad, is in there playing on the computer, and then Angelina Jolie, but Kate, the character Kate, is like hooking up with Curtis, like taking her clothes off, and then the hacker crew is just sitting there in the dark corner around the computer, stop focusing on the computer, watching this happen, and saying nothing. And then Kate, sorry, I'm just gonna call her by her real name, but the character Kate, like, looks up and sees them.
Watching her,
Just,
be
like-
naked, basically.
Like, zips her outfit back up, which, like, was a killer jumpsuit. Props to costume department. But then just goes over and is like, oh, yeah, you want to learn about my computer? Huh. And that's, like, a total set her up for, like, not like the other girls. Which I think there's a lot to talk about Kate, and I don't want to spend the whole time talking, but that's just what stood out to me the most about that.
For
I
sure.
agree, yeah.
Kind of manic pixie dream girl energy a little bit.
I don't know what that is.
You have to, yeah.
It's. Do you know what it is? I don't know. Oh my god. Okay, I don't know how to describe it. It's. Have you seen 500 Days of Summer?
Yes.
It's like a girl that is only there to like meet a guy, and she's all like quirky and different, but she's like damaged, and the guy has to fix her and like help her find joy, for him to find joy.
Oh my
And
god,
it's-
that's this
Isn't
movie.
it? Yeah, it's in so many movies,
Yeah.
and it's just like this. Yeah, it's essentially along those
Yeah.
lines.
Okay, so the trope exists, like this is a quote, solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures. So yeah, I totally see that, of like, Kate is just there so that
Yeah, so
Dade
that-
can like explore
Yeah.
and like, I guess, relearn his hacking skills. I don't know.
We should talk about how he visualizes her, like, at the beginning, too. Because there was that sequence of images when he first, like, lays eyes on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that even from when she was first introduced, very sexualized.
Yeah, and then when he got mad at her, there was that second image, and it was, like, a man strangling a woman in, like, a horror movie. And I was like, this is normalizing violence against women. Like, just because you get mad at someone doesn't mean you can, like, strangle them or, like, think about a movie where someone's being strangled. Like, I thought that was so inappropriate. I thought that was even more inappropriate than, like, the sex images, to be honest, because I feel like violence against women is so normalized online, and then it perpetuates itself in chat rooms, and then people don't realize how normalized it is, and then I think they're more likely to commit violence in real life because it's, like, normal to them suddenly, and they're not shocked by it. Like, I think the fact that I was one of the only people that even noticed that shows how normalized we're getting to violence against
Definitely.
women, or just, like, violence in general.
I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it, and then now that I'm thinking about it, she reminds me a lot of those, like, the token girl in video games. You know what I mean? Like,
The one who's got like the tight suit and the big boobs, and she does like the one kick, and every man is like, "Oh, you can fight!"
Right.
And then they don't let her fight the rest of the game.
Yeah.
True.
Or like has the one useful skill that the group needs, but like, if the rest of the group work together, they could probably replace her anyway. Ugh, man.
Do you say, oh, men? Or
Yeah. Oh yeah, I said ugh, man, but like, yes, I do mean
man.
ugh, man. That's like, which. Okay, I like what you said, Christine, about the whole, like, normalize... Well, I don't like the idea of normalizing, but I think you made a good point about normalizing violence against women, because I think it also... One of the things that the movie also did in that, like, interrupted sex scene, it also kind of normalized that, like, dweeby boys or geeks, even though, like, the hackers are supposed to be cool, can kind of, like, get away with bad behavior.
Yeah, like, if a boy came into my room, I would be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, and if it was my friend, I'd be like, wow, that's even worse. Like,
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
why are you in here? Why are you invading my privacy? But because they're, like, not her, not at the time, like, her love interest, it's kind of like, okay, and that she's like, oh, I have a shared interest, so therefore, like, you can cross the boundaries that I have, because we're friends. And I feel like that also, I don't know.
It
I
kind
really
of sets
don't like
women
it.
up for failure,
Yeah.
I feel like, because we're expected to just not have any boundaries, and we're expected to just let people do whatever they want to us. And, like, she had no autonomy in that movie, because, like, the only time she exercised something negative against them was when she like sent the kid to the roof, which like it seems like she was just following the crowd there. So even then, like, she wasn't being autonomous. And then, like, I guess when she was a hacker or whatever, she was like kicking people off her turf. So maybe that was like the only way she could exercise autonomy, was to like basically be faceless and be genderless behind a computer screen.
Wow.
And then
It's a pretty profound statement.
Yeah.
That's really deep.
Yeah.
I feel like online even it's hard to be women, because like, did you ever play Among Us?
Yeah.
No.
Like, people would always be like, what's your gender? And I would just always be like, male, because I knew once you're a girl, it's just weird.
Wasn't it one of you in this group who was saying that you'll play video games but you won't speak if it's a like group setting because you don't want them to know that you're
It's you, Christine.
Yeah, I don't. I don't really like online, like, multiplayer games. I exclusively like single player campaign games. That's why I liked Among Us, because it's typing, not speaking, so you don't have to like expose yourself.
I've had like guy friends like within my CS major who are like, you know, they're like programmers. They like show me like clips of like people playing CS:GO in those games, and they're like being like really really mean to the girls and like, haha, this is so funny.
Oof.
You know what I mean?
And I actually I was in a Discord that was supposed to be like reverse engineering, like I think PS4, and I left it because the guys were like posting a lot of like inappropriate stuff, and they didn't even know I was a girl, but they were like sharing really like weird graphic things, and I was like, wow, no wonder women like leave computing, because like if you can deal with this, like,
Yeah.
We should do an episode about gaming culture sometime.
oh, we'll get dragged.
Oh my god, yeah.
I
We're
hate us.
probably honestly gonna get dragged for this one because this is like a cult classic.
True.
But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm this movie. Break up with me.
Another thing that I've been thinking about is like the Kate and Dade relationship, and that kind of goes back to like how women are treated, but even in the real world, like he immediately has to like mark his territory with her, and he has to put her down, and like he hacks the school database to put himself in the same class that she is in, so then he can come in and compete with her in what appeared to be a quote writing competition in class.
Some literature.
Like a literary, like write a literary quote, and he had to like one up her, which is also interesting, right? Because she wrote a quote that her mom put down on, she quoted her mom on the blackboard, and it was something about how men suck, essentially. I can't remember exactly what it was, and the teacher was like, well, that's not a real quote, and she's like, yes it is, my mom wrote it, and he was like, well, your mom doesn't count, and she's like, my mom's a published author. And like, we didn't know at the time, like the audience doesn't know at the time how extensive her publishing thing is, but then Dade comes in and writes some other quote from
Ginsburg.
Yes, and you know, and then it's like, oh yeah, you win the school competition, you know, and then you also see Angelina Jolie. Sorry, you see Kate. I'm gonna mess that up every time, but you see her react like kind of completely irrationally, where she, instead of just being like, this is unacceptable, or like, hey, what, you know, she lunges across the teacher's desk, climbs on top of a student's desk, and like snatches the enrollment papers out of the teacher's hand, and like, he's not in this class, he can't compete. Like, I think that like he's just there to push her buttons, and they show her reacting kind of irrationally or unexpectedly, like not how a normal, in my opinion, not how a normal person, or the average person I should say, would react. And then he continues to like neg her, and he goes in and he has to beat her video game score because she can't, like, she never feels like she has one thing that she's good at. Even when they do the competition, they're going back and forth, and they still kind of end up tying, because Dade makes Agent Hill deceased, but like she never gets a chance to win. He always has to be better and push one further. And yeah, she showcases her skills along the way, but like we never get to see her win, and we don't see, it's not like a healthy competition between the two. It is very much them like pushing each other down and negging, and then at the end we're supposed to believe like, oh hey, they're in love, like they have a romance. Like it's just all very weird.
Dysfunction, which
Yeah.
I feel like is such a common thing in relation, and in movies, like you said, it's like the enemies to lovers trope. It's so true. Like we normalize fighting, and then people think that like
That's when a guy likes you.
attract, and a guy likes you, and
He's
it's
being
normal.
mean.
He didn't really treat her that well.
And then
Well,
but we normalize that and internalize that, and that's why women end up in bad relationships.
Yeah.
Think about how wrong it is that he like changed his class schedule just to be with her. Like that's weird.
That's toxic and stalkerish.
Right.
Yeah.
My interpretation of like the scene you were talking about when she like snatches the thing is that she's like visibly uncomfortable that he's in there and she's like reacting to it. And like my thing is that, like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I thought about it. I was like, oh, she's like she doesn't want him in this class. Like she was realizing that he's like crossed the boundary and like got into this class for her. You know what I mean? Like
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, that's so true. She's probably freaked out.
Yeah.
Because she brought him to his first class, so she knew what his class was. And she knew it wasn't
That's
that.
creepy.
That is creepy.
That is.
It would not pass the Steve Buscemi test. Let me just tell you. If Steve Buscemi did that, it would be creepy. But
Lauren, can you explain to the audience your Steve Buscemi test?
Yes. Okay. So I did not create this test, but this is a test that I have heard of. Sometimes in movies and media, hot, attractive, conventionally attractive men can get away with doing really creepy and uncomfortable things. So a way to like gauge whether or not that behavior is appropriate is to replace the attractive person with Steve Buscemi, who, talented actor, does not have the same looks as maybe a conventionally attractive person. So if you replace that person with Steve Buscemi, do you still feel the same way you do about the outcome, or are you uncomfortable? And 9 times out of 10, you're uncomfortable because what they're doing is crossed a line. The character is just attractive enough to get away with it.
Sorry.
You know? Oh, no. In sync.
Yeah,
You're in sync.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't pass the Steve Buscemi test, and it doesn't pass the Bechdel test. And how are we going to wrap this up, you guys?
I will say one thing that I thought the movie did well that I was kind of keeping an eye out for and was kind of surprised by 1995 standards. I felt like the cast was relatively diverse. It wasn't all just white people.
Were there any Asian people, though?
Yeah, the Hack the Planet, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they did have a role.
Yeah.
Okay. So they... For 1995, I agree. They did okay.
They did okay.
You know, I was expecting it to be an all-white cast. You would love to see more representation, but I was, like, pleasantly surprised that, like, the hacker group...
The hacker group was actually
Freak was
diverse.
Hispanic. Oh, which I also wanted to say, another thing they did, when Freak got arrested, his mom, the only time we see her mom, is angry Latina woman. Like, angry, yelling in Spanish. Granted, her son did just get arrested, so, like, that's probably a valid reaction. But she's, like, hitting him, like, cursing, like, very much reacting, and that's the only time we see her. I feel like that... If we had seen more of her, it wouldn't be as problematic, because that's the only time we see her, that's a little, like...
I feel like that type of content is, like... Because I watch, like, Latinx Snapchat, and, like, they'll do, like, haha, like, Latinx moms, and they'll, like, do stuff like that, and they make that joke, but this movie was for sure written by, like, a white person, so it's not okay for them to, like, use that narrative.
Can we do some final reviews? What does everyone... rated?
Oh, like on a scale of like
yeah.
what? What's our scale?
I don't know, give your like Rotten Tomatoes percentage and.
But we're gonna rate it though based on for women.
We should do like a, well, like what's a hacking? Like 5 terminals means it's 5 stars or whatever. Yeah, like let's make a rating scale that's a cyber
theme. Here like 8 times and I still don't get it.
And would you watch this movie again?
No. A hard pass.
I say
you should say, would you watch this again?
Yeah, I just say, okay, so do you recommend, would you watch again?
I don't think I would watch it again.
I don't think it was worth the hype. I don't know why. And maybe people will come for us or come for me, but I just didn't think it was that good.
They come for you, they come for us all.
I thought like there's a lot better hacker movies, like that movie Clueless.
With Lindsay Lohan. Get a clue.
Clueless.
I was like, where's the hacking Clueless?
What are you talking about?
Get a Clue with Lindsay Lohan. I think was a better hacking movie, and Spy Kids. For sure.
Spy Kids.
Okay, so in our next movie review, stay tuned because we will pick a Disney Channel movie or Spy Kids.
Yeah. I'd say if you haven't seen it,
I also
Give it a
don't like
watch.
rewatching movies usually, so I usually don't rewatch movies that I've seen before unless they're really good.
Like the Lord
Like
of
the
the Rings.
Princess Diaries.
I love the Princess Diaries.
I think I would watch this again, but I would have like something on in the background. Like I don't think I would choose to put it on, but if it was on, I would like sit and play games in front of my phone and wouldn't necessarily change the channel.
I
It
think
was just very confusing.
I'd watch it again for the purpose of watching a bad movie, but I also think there are way better bad movies
Yeah.
to watch than this.
Like the Kissing Booth trilogy.
yeah, or like Twilight.
I also thought his name was Dave at the
Yeah.
beginning. So
What do you think, Rebecca? Or sorry, what's your hacker name?
Well, I have watched it again.
Rage Ninja.
Rage
Rage Ninja.
Yeah, so I have watched it, and I watched it again, and yeah, I don't know. I don't see a reason why I'd watch it again.
Again.
But I do recommend, because it's kind of a cool part of the hacker culture, for better or worse, that it kind of sheds light onto. So I think it's kind of like, I think it's important for everyone interested in this field to kind of take a look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we got to all watch it together.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't have made it through the movie.
Well, you said you fell asleep. Yeah.
I think was really offended.
Yeah, he's going to break up with you.
He's gonna be offended about this podcast.
Do we know how much like hacking culture has changed since the 90s?
That's
Like,
what I was
was any of this kind of relevant to the times?
We can't
Or
answer
reviewing?
that.
Yeah,
I think
we were
so.
no.
I think it was pretty.
Freaking was
Yeah.
like a thing. Like
Yeah.
that was pretty real. But I don't think people were really like hacking stuff the way that like these kids were. Like people
Yeah.
were actively getting arrested, and I don't think they were kids. I think
I
they
just
were
don't know.
adults.
I don't know if I'm not really sure how realistic that is either. I don't actually know.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was probably fantasy.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the movie.
It was fun.
I'd say a fun romp.
Yeah. What's the rating for this movie? Is it PG-13?
I don't know.
I saw
know
boobs, so it
so it has to be
be
probably
Saw
are.
boobs.
and 2 butts.
A butt crack.
So many cracks.
An underage.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
why
a-
do we see so many butts in this movie?
PG-13.
Oh my
Really?
god! And you can see boobs
Wow,
at PG-13.
1995 had much different standards. Maybe because like her boobs weren't fully out, you could just
No,
kind
I
of see
saw
like
a nipple.
nips.
You saw a
I
nipple?
saw a nipple.
I saw two nips.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw nip, but there was definitely
No, they were nips.
There were
Okay.
nips.
They were two
Yeah,
nips.
they were-
All right, guys.
Also,
Ladies.
this got a 32 on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.2 on IB.
Well, no
IMDb.
wonder.
Oh, 32
That
Rotten
is
Tomatoes.
definitely the
can you-
makings of like a cult classic.
Can you read like some of the reviews really quick?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Like just like give me some good
Yeah,
ones.
let's round this out. Silly graphics, silly story, but hot young Angelina Jolie.
Of course.
Yep.
Cutting edge ideas can't quite compensate for a banal storyline.
An average film, but worth seeing because of how comically dated it all seems not even a decade later. That was from Bob the Moo, April 19th, 2005.
Whoa.
This movie should have been hacked.
That's so funny. That's a good one.
Even if you bought DOS for dummies, there's nothing in hackers that will stretch your brain.
That's so funny.
Very odd, yet strangely enjoyable. A lot of these are about Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
An onslaught of lame plotting, dopey writing, and cornball histrionics.
Oh, we should review The Matrix.
Maybe.
I just
That
watched
would
The
be-
Matrix
Yeah, that's
for the
hard. That'll be
first
hard to
time.
sit through. The whole trilogy.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Make sure you give us a review, share with your friends. Check out our Instagram to see our recording session and maybe some puppy photos. Today's her hack. Maybe don't watch this movie.
That's a critique. I'm gonna knock it down a star because I saw too many butts.
Nudity.